This is Jesse Pinkman, and he's about to deliver the lines that cement him as the most broken character in Breaking Bad. We first meet Jesse as this dumb, laid-back junkie, and for a good reason.
Yeah, Mr. White. Yes, science.
But as the show progresses, he underwent many tragic moments that got him from looking like this to this. And all of that happened because of his strained relationship with Walter White. His and Jesse's relationship spanned the whole runtime of the show. They have bled, fought, and cried for one another. And yet, here they are now, one pulling a gun on the other, where finally Jesse has the upper hand. But how did this scene finally break Walt's hold on Jesse? Before that, let me provide some context. In the beginning of the show, these two characters' relationship was simply born out of duty.
Maybe you and I could partner up.
You want to cook crystal meth?
But as we move forward, we realize that these two have formed a bond that is more than a teacher-student relationship. They have formed a camaraderie.
Yes! Come on!
But all that fell apart when Jesse realized that Walt had manipulated him time and time again,
Mr. White, he's the devil.
which led him to be on the wrong end of Walt's actions. Now, in this scene, we are put in this tragic situation. Walt having just killed the enemies he had made, and Jesse, having killed the guy who had tormented him for months, stand face to face, with Jesse having his whole life ahead of him and Walt with nothing left to lose. Walt says this,
Do it. You want this.
a direct order to kill the man who pulled Jesse into a life of crime. But Walt saying these few words triggered a bunch of trauma for Jesse. Throughout the whole show, the relationship of these two was dictated by Walt's superiority.
You didn't follow my instructions!
Oh, well, Heil Hitler, bitch!
At one of the first times they met, the arrangement to cook and sell crystal meth was one that was forced upon Jesse by coercion. A naive and young Jesse agreed, the very beginning of the rest of his life. We can see that even in their earlier days, Walt was always the one dictating what to do and what not to do. Though as audiences, we see these moments as the cute, fun dynamic between these two characters.
You're the goddamn Iron Chef.
It was when these characters' relationships were forming, from one bound of duty to one built on shared moments. And even though the seeds of Walt's manipulation were barely noticeable, it was still planted below our feet. Here is where it gets darker. The major turning point from Walt simply giving instructions to Jesse to making Jesse do irredeemable deeds was when Jesse killed Gale. Although at the time, it was for their greater good. But for Jesse, Gale's death was the catalyst for his remaining experiences in the show. Well, you might just say that people die all the time in Breaking Bad. Our main characters kill all the time, even Jesse at some point. And you'd be correct. But here's the thing, Jesse is a character that starts off as a criminal but ends as a human. This is a stark contrast to Walt's character, in which he starts off as a human then ends as a criminal. So, Gale dying was the turning point in Jesse being human again, because unlike other people who have died in his life, Gale's death was on him.
Jesse, do it now! Do it, bitch! Do it fast!
All of this was due to the orders of one man, Walter White.
Say the words. Say you want this.
A tragic way to portray his care for human life. We see Jesse's close ties to humanity in various scenes throughout the show. Through the death of Jane, Combo getting shot, even Spooge, the man who robbed him, getting his head smashed. However, there's another side to all these situations. Walt's point of view. Walt, unlike Jesse, sees killing as a means to an end for his business. Walt refused to save Jane for Jesse's sake. Walt shows signs of apathy in Combo's death,
Combo's dead.
Which one is he?
and he uses the death of Spooge as a way to further their business.
You crushed their skull with an ATM machine. Now, don't you see how great this is?
So, Jesse saying these lines of asking Walt if he wanted this is a way for him to ask, what's in it for you? But there's more to the scene.
Nothing happens until I hear you say it.
Notice the lines here. Nothing happens till I hear you say it. At this point in time, he was still waiting for orders from Walt. A harsh reality within his character that even after being slaved and kept in a cell like an animal, he was still asking for permission, despite the horrors that Walt has put him through. I also wanted to highlight how Jesse is on the verge of tears. a clear sign of how even though Walt has treated him like garbage throughout the show, even ordering him to be murdered at their previous meeting, he still cared for him very deeply.
I want this.
And there it is, the confirmation that Walt and Jesse were on the same page. But Jesse notices something. Walt, a shell of himself with nothing but skin and bones hanging intact and a bleeding wound from his stomach, is a man at death's door. Jesse shooting Walt at this moment would serve Walt more than Jesse. Again, just like with Gale's death, Walt was ordering Jesse to do something that he inherently is against with, death. An order that Walt is ultimately benefiting from.
Then do it yourself.
Finally, Jesse refused to follow. This is a great moment in the show and a defining character moment for Jesse. After 5 seasons of deliberately following Walt's orders to the point that it literally ruins his life, it ended with Jesse finally having the autonomy to think on his own feet, to finally decipher what actions of his are simply a means to an end for Walt. This is the point where I believe Jesse's character is the most complete. After this point, we see in El Camino how he is a man of experience and maturity. Jesse shows semblances of Walt's intelligence, Mike's wisdom, and even Gus's ruthlessness. After going outside Jack's establishment, these two characters' last interaction was this. No words, just a subtle nod from both of them to signify their respect, even after everything that they've done to each other. As others have pointed out before me, this scene closely mirrors their first interaction in the pilot episode. The framing, the direction of Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul, even the head turn that Jesse does is exactly the same as the scene in the pilot. An homage of sorts to the fans and to how far these beloved characters have come, with their transformations being a fun sight to compare side by side. Jesse in season 1 was a naive and laid-back guy, a guy who was supposed to die at the end of the season, has become this broken man inside and out. All of this because of the person standing in front of him, Walt. I like to think that these two scenes serve as a before and after on Walt's overall influence on Jesse. But there was another callback to Walt's influence, specifically during this scene in season 3, episode 9, Kafkaesque, where Jesse talks about this wooden box that he created in middle school.
This one time I had this teacher, Mr. Pike. My project for his class was to make this wooden box. So when I showed it to Mr. Pike, he looked at it and said, "Is that the best you can do?"
Walt, being this figure that challenges Jesse's creation, is a reflection of his teacher that he talked about, Mr. Pike. And just like Mr. Pike, Walt's constant encouragement and or discouragement pushed Jesse to redo something over and over again until he got it perfectly, which he did when he first started cooking meth. Yet, in the end, even after crafting this beautiful box that he had spent days on,
I traded it for an ounce of weed.
a reflection on how Walt's influence, even though it was inherently good, led him to a life of tragedy. This is further emphasized during one of the final scenes in the finale. See, the very first time we see Jesse in the series finale is during a flashback to when he was creating that same wooden box. We see the things that he talked about in the previous scene.
It was fitted with pegs, no screws. I sanded it for days until it was smooth as glass. Then I rubbed all the wood with tung oil so it was rich and dark. It even smelled good. You put your nose in it and breathed in.
But then, back to reality. This is a hard juxtaposition of Walt's influence on Jesse. At first, it was something positive. Walt's mentorship made Jesse into one of the greatest 2 meth cooks in America. But too much of it led him to a life of doing that same thing over and over again. Then, this scene wraps up the loose ends of the show perfectly. Walt dies in the only place that made him feel alive, and Jesse gains his freedom, not only from his captors but also from Walt himself. Bravo, Vince.